You're watching the Eternal Tournament Series.
Welcome one and welcome all to a very, very, very special edition of the Eternal Tournament Series, where this isn't a series, but it is certainly a very special tournament. KCBandit is sponsoring the first ever sealed tournament in the Eternal card game. So I am SirRhino, and joining me in the booth today to bring all of this limited action is Man Unmouse, the esteemed, amazing streamer. How you doing, man?
Oh, pretty good. I'm just pretty busy pretending I'm not nervous at all, but otherwise I am fine, yeah.
That is great. So we're going to break down exactly what is going on today because, well, I think saying there's some confusion with what's going on today would be an understatement, but this is a sealed tournament. So what's at least the intent of what's happening today is every player that registered for this tournament gets a sealed pool where we simulate a bunch of packs that you would open, and then based on that pool, you have to build 75 card deck. Normally in maybe other games, or even in this game, when you draft, you'd build a 45 card deck, but because of the limitations of the client and the challenge system in this game, it's got to be a 75 card deck. So a bit bigger than you would normally expect out of a limited deck. And through our testing and other things and some feedback that we were getting before the tournament, we decided to add 2 extra Seek Powers and Diplomatic Seals to every pool just to help smooth out the power bases, try and cut down on the number of non-games, make sure more keepable hands were showing up. And then basic sigils are obviously unlimited. You kind of need them to make the decks work. And then so you build a 75 card deck. Everything else in your sealed pool ends up being your sideboard. So depending on how your pool ends up, you might end up having 2 independent decks that you can switch between. Now, game 1 always has to be the same deck, but that is a feature of sealed, where if you have a deep enough pool, sometimes you can just totally switch your strategy on your opponent because your sideboard is so deep. So those are the basic rules of the sealed tournament, and it'll be Swiss rounds. We have a record-breaking number of players in today's tournament. I think the final count was right around 160 participants for today's tournament, playing for that cash prize in the top 8. So there, I believe, will be 8 Swiss rounds today, and then we'll cut to top 8. So a whole lot of limited Eternal action is going to be played today. And I'm at least excited. How are you feeling, man?
Oh, I'm so excited. That's the first one, right? The first of its kind?
Yes. Nobody has ever attempted a limited event before in Eternal because, well, the logistics are kind of tough to figure out. I think we did a pretty good job of it for our first time. There is, of course, no event is perfect, but all things considered, it's at least moving about as smoothly as at least I expected. But maybe my expectations are not quite in line with others. With that being said, the players are getting ready to throw down, and we've got a doozy of a matchup here in front of us. We've got IlyaK, who you may have heard of. He sometimes has an opinion that he likes to spout off in the community, but still a very well-respected player, strong player, up against Bairdrus, who sometimes hangs out in the booth here on the Eternal Tournament Series while not doing whatever Bairdruses normally do in their normal lives. So a couple of great players with some really strong decks here as we see Mulligan's Resolve. So if you need deck lists, there's a deck list doc. It is public information. It doesn't have all their sealed pool, but still, these are 2 of the stronger decks, at least from what I could tell, going into this match as we see Bairdrus open on Seek Power.
Oh yeah, I think both players had a really strong pool overall. Considered, I think so far we've glanced over a couple of deck lists so far, and IlyaK seems like one of the strongest out there. I'm excited to see how it's going to play out.
And that holds true here as we see Ilya's hand is a Permafrost of Feeding Time and a Champion of Cunning already with some very good 3-drops. Although Bairdrus is opening here, 3 faction, Noble Fire Main into Forsworn Stranger is not too shabby, but man, we're going to have to go down the list of the on-faction Feln bombs that IlyaK ended up in his pool. It is something incredible. He has Memory Dredger, Impending Doom, Champion of Cunning, Whispers in the Void, Mistveiled Drake, Argenport Ringmaster. And that's not to mention like these feeding times, permafrost, and other removal spells. It is insane.
Yeah. He also managed to stay on 2 colors, right? That is very rare in a sealed environment. You're usually forced to play 3, maybe even 3.5 colors, like special 4th one.
Yeah, Ilya is on the 14 Primal Sigil, 15 Shadow Sigil power base with some Seek powers. So it is fully 2 faction as we see the Permafrost come out here on the Forsworn Stranger. Kobold Acolyte gives itself flying, Praxis Displacer doing its tempo things, beating in down here. And Ilya debating on if he wants to make this trade or keep the flyer around, as flyers are very valuable in this format. And actually, it looks like Displacer did not swing in. Not sure what's going on here. Bairdrus really is trying to find double justice. That Diplo Seal not being able to apply influences having an impact on this game.
I like the way Ilya is playing here, though. Rather defensive. He did not swing in with his Kobold Acolyte there. Because with his hand and with his deck, he's interested in the long game, right? He can rely on the raw power level on his cards there. So I would be snap blocking the Displacer here. He would swung in there.
Yeah, and he's opting to drop the 2/2 flyer here as well. There's always a temptation to hold up Lightning Strike when you know your opponent could be playing relic weapons. Again, these deck lists are public, but it's also kind of a thing where how much do you want to play around certain one-ofs in a 75 card deck list? And that's always the balance here as we see Ilya now starts crashing in with flyers and will presumably follow it up with just a 5/5 Champion of Cunning that's still just a 5/5 at least.
Yeah, with the Dark Return in hand, I think there's really not much to fear here. It's just the solid body on its own, and it's not that easy, right? You can't wait most of the time to get your activation, the influence activation on your champions in sealed or in limited formats, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is also a thing where you need to recognize Bairdrus is on a 3-faction deck, and a lot of his strongest cards cost double justice. So trying to leverage this advantage of Bairdrus not having double justice yet, like even if you don't know that he's got specifically Throne Warden and Mithril Maze in hand, Bairdrus has things like Deep Forge Plate that are also in his deck, and trying to get the job done before that shows up, even if you have feeding time to deal with it, is important.
What do you think about the last block there? Bairdrus chose to block the Skeeter instead of the Stormcrasher, taking 1 extra point of damage.
Yeah, that I don't exactly agree with. There's not much extra you're playing around there as far as 3 damage versus 4 damage and out of Felm. Just a minor misplay. But those minor misplays certainly add up in the course of a tournament or a game, as we see Ilya hits his 6 power and now is a 4/4 flyer. And I think we're going to see Bairdrus throw it in front of that owl now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's just a ton of pressure here. And there's just the champion sitting there with the looming threat of activation. As soon as he gets flying or even the shadow side comes online, the game will be over really quick.
Yeah. The other crucial thing that happened there was Bairdrus chose to play his Throne Warden instead of his Mithril Mace, and that allowed Ilya to activate the Stormcrasher to become a 4/4 instead of it being a 2/2 flyer. And now Ilya finds another Kobold Acolyte. That's a flying Champion of Cunning. Maybe not the way you typically expect it, but that's going to take out the Mithril Mace as well and a lot of Bairdrus' health.
I think he does have, in typical Feldstein, like 3 of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now he's debating, yep, Thorn Beast can eat up this Kobold Acolyte, get a 5/5 on the ground to keep that stalled out. And now you even have Dark Return, get back your flying Kobold Acolyte, give this Thorn Beast flying, and you just have this crazy army. And I think that's what we're going to see here.
He could choose to go with the feeding time on the fly here, set up a 2-turn. Yeah, I think I agree with that play here.
Yeah, that's fair. I think either way is pretty strong. You know your opponent's deck list. You know they don't have any kind of board wipes. So if you get the extra flyer, you're pushing damage. You can always feeding time the next turn. But either way, I don't think there's a wrong play.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have the sideboard or the full pool here, so it's hard to say what they are going to sideboard here. I don't think Ilya is going to sideboard much because his deck is pretty nuts as it stands.
Yeah, I don't see him changing much, especially because he's on 2 faction. He's kind of limited in what he can swap in and out. So I think I would be surprised if anything radical changes. maybe Bairdrus has a second kind of deck up his sleeve, or he knows that his opponent just has the bigger, bombier deck, and he might need to switch to a more streamlined, less greedy, like 2-faction deck just to try and become the beatdown in this matchup, because it's so hard to have more inevitability than what Ilya is packing.
Yeah, I think he has to maybe try to find a lower to the ground approach, because when I look at his deck list, his top end is no way, shape, or form good enough to compete with. I think his best bet might be to put on some early pressure and then hope to utilize cards like Deep Forge Plate to push in the final last point of damage. I mean, he does have Ejin in his deck that can provide him with some longevity. I don't think it's good enough against IlyaK's powerhouse of a deck, and also his removal suite. He has a ton of heart removal for that.
Yeah, like the reason I think Bairdrus decided to play time was like he has 2 Awakened Students and not a Towering Terrazon, but a Plated Goliath. So there's some powerful time cards, but I don't know if they're. I mean, maybe just trying to mise your way to an early Awakened Student is the way to win this matchup. But we'll have to see if any changes go down as the challenges are back out, and we're going to hop in to check out this match.
Right, against this hand, against Ilya, if he can find some early pressure here, he might have a Nevermind.
Yep.
To curb out as a good unit to defy early pressure there.
Yeah, flyers are nice to have. Those are very high value cards as far as sealed goes, and we see Find the Way is the draw for Bairdrus here to really get all of this fixing down. But Ilya doesn't have removal for flyers, but instead can race it with this Xena Destroyer, and also being on the play means pressure and life gain, and he's got to be pretty happy with this opener, even if his follow-up is looking pretty putrid right now.
Yeah, but what Bairdrus has to offer right now will not do much for the foreseeable future. The Phoenix can be played on curve, but its effect will not do much. It can reduce the Twin Barrel, which is a curious inclusion in this deck.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it does look pretty scary with the Plated Goliath looming there. Twin Barrel, Plated Goliath, they go pretty well together if you want to finish a game quick.
Yeah, Bairdrus also has Rise to the challenge, so that may have been a factor in why he wanted to include it as part of his Rise package. Like sometimes you already somehow have your Deep Forge Plate, or maybe can't cast Deep Forge Plate, and giving Twin Barrel +2/+0 with that double damage can go a long way in certain board states. So, or just shoving it on a flyer. So we'll see how that ends up playing out as Ilya just finds a Slumbering Stone, not quite the haymaker he was hoping for, but still he's sitting pretty as he's ahead on board.
Ilya got off to a good start here, but if Bairdrus could see Ilya's hand here, he would feel pretty good here.
Yep, chose to not block the stranger. This Library Phoenix isn't going to be flying anytime soon, but a Tower Top Patrol off the top will at least help stem the bleeding, and that 0-cost Seek Power feels real nice.
I can see not trading here. The stranger is not going to be hugely relevant. He's not under a ton of pressure. It's not like he's taken none, but he has 2 6-drops in hand that will stabilize this board real nice.
Yep, so there it is. The Destroyer bounces off Tower Top Patrol. Memory Dredger, there's one of Ilya's bombs shows up, but still Tower Top Patrol doing what it always does, and that's ruling the skies, keeping the damage at bay. And now Bairdrus is going to get to play his 6 power and decide between a Roosting Owl or Goliath, and Plated Goliath is the weapon of choice.
Yeah, completely agree there. The Roosting Owl is tricky in the spot. You don't really want to exhaust anything.
Yeah.
And the Plated Goliath does also provide the better blocks here on the ground, because the patrol is kind of forced to start blocking the Dredger from now on. And I like this block here from Bairdrus. He goes for the max value block here. He knows the Xena Destroyer has to attack next turn anyway, so he snatched off the stranger there and can also eat the Destroyer next turn.
Yep. So now Bairdrus is deciding, does he want to just exhaust the Plated Goliath? And that's what he goes for. So the next unit he draws will have +7/+5. That's some good end game insurance, but Ilya rips an Inspire Obedience.
That's
man.
really bad.
Okay, so what are you pointing it at, though? The big flyer or the big Goliath that can't even block this turn? Your opponent's at 8.
I think I would point it at the tower top patrol there.
Right.
The owl did not have any good blocks on this board, especially not on the memory dredger there.
Yeah, I wonder if he forgot about the +1 attack buff, because that's the big part of this equation, right? Normally, the owl can block the dredger just fine; they'll bounce off each other. But that one extra strength meant that the dredger would have eaten the owl. But here we go, 5 damage is coming in. Bairdrus would go to 3 here if he decides to not block it all with the bird, and he's got to decide how much of his life total. What does he want to go down to? And yeah, he decides to let the bird take up 4 damage there and go down to 2 units on board with just a twin barrel in hand.
I agree on the block. I think I would have liked it to see him block earlier with the bird. The bird kind of did its job, right? And with this amount of power in hand, it's unlikely to activate this bird anytime soon. So I'd rather would have maybe taken a double block with the patrol and the bird on the Xena Destroyer there to get rid of it.
Yep. So in crashes the units again. Xena Destroyer into Plated Goliath, as both players are just drawing power. Bairdrus deciding to hold a bunch of this power because he has 2 Awakened students in this list. I don't know if he has any other Empower cards, but those at least are the relevant ones. Oh, he also has Gilded Glaive, so there's a pretty good reason to hold some of this power. I don't know if I would hold 5 power.
I think he should play some, since it's also a Worldpire Phoenix in his deck, right? So he wants to be able to play it. Maybe it gets removed and play it right again. So he wants to at least be at 8, I think, might be the sweet spot here.
Yeah, I think I can agree with that. At least get some of this power out of hand. Once you find an Empower unit, you're going to never use up all of this power anyways.
Yeah.
But again, it's kind of small, but as we said, these small things matter, especially when you're both starved on resources right now. Making the most of every single card you draw is really key here.
Yeah, also makes it better in case he finds his Rise to the Challenge, so he can maybe Rise for a Deep Forge Plate.
Oh yeah,
play it right away. So maybe end this game, because he has a lot of work. He has a lot of life to work through, right? Yes. Yeah. IlyaK sitting at 44 there.
Yeah, Deep Forge Plate or Mithril Mace, both of those cost 5, so you'd want to be on 9 power when you have Rise to the Challenge. And right now, Bairdrus could only get to 8 if you were to draw those. So yeah, those are important breakpoints. He finally finds what got the +7/+5, and it is a 10-8 quick draw Rebel Sharpshooter.
That is a good hit. That is a really good hit. I mean, the problem is he can't really attack right now, because then IlyaK will just block with the Stone Skull Mag. I don't like this attack, because now he gives IlyaK the option to block with the Stone Skull Maggots, shrink the patrol, and that opens up the sky again for IlyaK.
Yep, and it also, we'll see how Ilya blocks here. Does not block with the Magus. Wants to keep that around, I guess, but as you said, shrinking that tower top patrol so that it only has 3 health means that it's then just dying when it blocks this memory dredger, which can then start getting back your Slumbering Stone, your Huru Strangers, pushing through your Beast Caller's amulet. But here we see the amulet goes down on the other flyer, and now Bear just has to pick his poison.
Oh yeah, what I would have liked to see there is just double block with the Magus and the Slumbering Stone, shrink the patrol, equip the Beast Caller's amulet like he did now, and now Bairdrus would not even be able to block, right? The best he could do is like jump.
Yeah,
and he's stuck between a rock and a hard place here.
Yeah, I think I'd like the double block as well. Maybe Ilya was valuing having that extra body around as a chump blocker for Sharpshooter, but you were already at 44 health. You were going to take 10 damage. I think with how low Bairdrus was, you just want to try and take the most aggressive, put on the most pressure, and by letting that tower top patrol remain a 1/5, I think you kind of undermine that strategy.
Yeah, I mean, the option will most likely be open next turn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bairdrus is forced to race here. He can't just sit with these 2 guys on the ground, because Ilya will kill him in the skies unless he rips something really strong here. But we'll have to wait for the hand cam to catch up, and it is just a stranger.
Yeah, that most likely will spell. Oh, he's I mean, I can see it.
Yeah, I guess if you're Ilya, like one of the ways you lose this game is that huge double damage unit also gets Deep Forge Plate. So he opts to just play it safe, take out the double damage thing. You still have crazy inevitability in the skies. You don't need to win next turn or something like that. So and he rips a Misspell Drake off the top.
Especially with the Misspell Drake here, he's in pretty good shape here. He even has a Dark Return if he wants to make really sure the ground is stalled.
Yeah,
throw a Stranger in the wrench. Yeah.
And Bairdrus sees the writing on the wall and also the 7 power in his hand, and will probably scoop it up here. And there it goes.
Yeah, I have the feeling that is the thing that will happen to a lot of IlyaK's opponents. At least I would look forward to play against this deck whatsoever.
Yeah. When a strong player gets a strong pool like that, that is
exactly.
Certainly formidable. So looks like we've got no backup matches for this round. So we're just going to take hopefully quick break, and we'll be back with more sealed tournament action after this break.
Sweet.